Hello, loved ones. Happy Tuesday. So, I am just going to get right into it. Tonight's daily devotional with Pastor Angie. Open up your Bibles, crack those bad boys open. We are diving in headfirst to Revelation chapter 13. Now, there is no way around it, gang. The imagery in Revelation 13 is just downright horrifying. And there is a very real reason for it. And so, again, like all of this book, I do not want us to shy away from it. I don't want us to put it in the freezer to pretend like it can't get us when it's in the freezer. That's a reference from the television show Friends. I want us to address it, process it, and see how we can take this rich imagery, this prophetic wisdom that John wrote down in Patmos and apply it to our own lives. Because I hope that tonight you will see we absolutely can. Revelation 13, verses 1 through 18. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems in its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like bears, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and authority and great authority. One of the heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all who dwell on earth will worship it, even those whose name have not been written before the foundation of the world, and in the book of the life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has a ear to hear, let him hear. Here is a call for the endurance and the faith of the saints. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of the people. And by its signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast, that it was wounded by the sword yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so the image of the beast might even speak, and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has that mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and his number is 666. Okay. There's so much to unpack here, so I'm just going to get right into it. The first thing I want us to talk about is the symbolism of the beast, the second beast, and the number 666. So 2 things that are really big when people think about the book of Revelation, especially from the 1990s, early 2000s on, is the word Antichrist and rapture. Neither of those are actually in the book of Revelation. You will not find the word Antichrist or the word rapture anywhere. You just won't. So this idea of there's going to be this person who's going to rise up, and they're going to be the Antichrist, and they're going to take over, and that's the sign of the end times. And again, I just blame Kirk Cameron and the whole Left Behind crew for all of this, because it's this idea of it's all literally going to happen, and there's going to be this series of events. And, John was writing this all down in Revelation, and this was exactly for when this is going to happen. And guys, I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes when I see things on the news like, okay, there's already a global pandemic, and we're having to deal with this horrible virus that none of us know how to defeat. And oh, by the way, there's murder hornets that are loose and killing the bees and can kill people. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we are in the end times, like maybe we're seeing all of these crazy plagues that we saw first in Exodus and now in Revelation. But the point is, let's just not go there. Like, let's maybe go there for a minute, but then let's say, no, that's probably not what's happening. So When I was at seminary and we were studying this, again, Dr. Mathewson, Dr. Blomberg, they all have given great wisdom and commentary, as well as people like N.T. Wright and other biblical scholars, that there is not just one antichrist. Okay, there's just not. There's just lots of antichrists. That idea of that secondary beast who is like a puppet to the beast, Satan, and has all this power and wisdom. It's basically just anybody who has power and is yielding power for evil instead of good, turning people away from God. That's it. So there's been lots of antichrists by that definition. So this idea and this conspiracy of, oh, this president was the Antichrist, or this president for sure is the Antichrist, or whatever. And there's this one thing, and it's going to be that mark that if we don't bow down, we're all going to be doomed and all that kind of stuff. No. So we're eisegeting the text instead of exegeting the text properly when we do that. And I want us to know that the symbolism and the calculations of the number 666 comes down to the Emperor Nero. It just is Nero. That's what John was referring to in Patmos, was the Emperor Nero, which we've talked about before, because he was the really mean, cruel, evil, oppressive emperor during the time that this was written, towards the end of the 1st century. And guess what? He was oppressing Christians. And so that idea of this imperial governing authority that was taking away the power and the ability for the good Christians to be able to do anything is what John was referring to in his own time, in his own environment when he was writing this. So I hope that helps you and gives you a little bit of peace when you're thinking about this. Now, I want us to talk about the saints, perseverance of the saints, the idea of the suffering of all of us saints, and I want us to talk about comparative suffering because it's so important. Right now, we see suffering all over. We see everyone, all of God's people, all of the world facing cruel injustices, heartache. There is so much brokenness and pain. There are people that have lost their jobs. There are people that are super sick. There are people who have had to cancel plans, huge life cancellations. There is so much toil and problem, whether it's economic, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's just all been really hard this entire year. We are called, and not only in Revelation 13:10, to endure with faithfulness for all of the saints, but we are also called to stand with those who are subject to persecution and unjust treatment, as is said in Hebrews 10, as Christians, as Christ followers. So that is why it's important for us to empathize with ourselves and empathize with those around us, and not just stay there, but to allow ourselves to process it and grieve and to take it to the Lord in intercessory prayer. Now is the time more than ever for us to pray on behalf of this weary world that is facing so much persecution, so much injustice, so much brokenness. And we have the opportunity and the choice to pray for it. So I want to talk about comparative suffering. Brene Brown, who I love so much, brilliant scholar and writer, she talks about comparative suffering, especially happening right now during COVID-19 and the global pandemic we are facing. Comparative suffering is created when we look around and we have shame in our hearts and continue to get more and more bitterness because we do not allow ourselves to properly grieve and suffer the things that we are enduring at this time, because we say to ourselves, well, it's not as bad as the other people around me. It's not as bad as so-and-so. So I shouldn't feel bad for myself. I shouldn't throw a pity party for myself. You hear that a lot. I'm not going to allow myself to be sad because, well, I just don't deserve it. That is operating on the mentality and the myth that empathy, compassion, grace is finite, which means it would run out. And we really do truly do this. We have fear mentality when we are all going through this global trauma, and we are all in trauma, friends. Okay? Look at the supermarkets. Look at what's going on in our organizations. Look at how people are treating each other and talking to each other. There is zero grace. Everybody is very untrusted. Everyone feels like everyone else has an agenda. No one is being offered with grace and compassion. That's fear, right? And we are all operating in a scarcity mindset too, which makes sense, which is why all of the toilet paper went missing and people are hoarding the cleaning supplies. But the other thing that we truly are doing, and she's so wise in saying this, Brene Brown, is we are not allowing ourselves to grieve properly, to pray, to take these things to each other and to the Lord, because we feel like we aren't allowed to feel the way that we're feeling. Our suffering doesn't rank high enough. So therefore, we shouldn't be able to process it. Let's just stuff it down. Okay. That's when we all are going to become those characters and those symbolic metaphors in Revelation 13, gang. Because the worst thing you can do when you have pain inside is not allow yourself to process it. Hurt people walk around hurting people. They lash out. They are ungracious. They are constantly questioning. They believe there are so many conspiracies around them. They are hostile, they yell, they have so much heightened anxiety, and I do not want you to be like that. I don't want to be like that. And my fear is that, fear, that if we don't allow ourselves to meet ourselves right where we're at, cry it out. If you have shame about crying, get over that. We got to get over that because it's good. It's good to cry it out. To allow ourselves to know that our suffering is valid wherever we are, whatever pain and oppression and tribulation we are going through as saints of the church in this time of history, right? We deserve other people to care about us. We need to know that God cares about what is worrying us. And we need to bring those things to the Lord in prayer. You see, empathy and compassion, God's grace is not finite, friends. It's not. So if we feel like if we take it, well, then there's not enough to go around. That's just a lie. It's not true. Just like the fear myths that breed in our head, false narrative myths that breed in our head, that scarcity mindset of I'll never have enough, I don't have enough. Those all breed in our minds and our hearts when we are operating out of trauma, when we are not operating out of a healthy place. So there is so much to endure. There's so much tribulation all around right now. But do me a favor. Do everyone a favor. Do your friends, your spouse a favor. Be gracious to yourself. Do the work. Allow yourself to feel how you need to feel. Maybe you need to go out and, I don't know, Montana men seem kind of stoic. So maybe you need to go on a drive in your truck and then just cry. Just cry it out. No one has to know about it. Just you and God. You'll feel better. You just will. You don't need to put on a brave face for everybody, because the reality is the more you stuff down your pain and your trauma, the worse off it's going to be, and the more it's just going to manifest in really bad, dark ways. So I love you all so much. We will endure. We will endure, and we will get through this, and we will endure in the most powerful way by praying for each other, to and for each other. So know that I am lifting you all up in powerful intercessory prayers tonight, and I love you all so much. And no matter what beasts and antichrists are roaming around with the evil, remember, we are written in the book of life, that the Lamb of God has put our names there. And so truly, this too shall pass. We have nothing to fear. I love you all. See you tomorrow. Bye.